It is still. Here we go. All right.
I feel like we're on now. Are we on? Let us know in the chat if we're on. If you can hear us, just tell us that you can hear us in the chat.
Yeah, is that better?
All right. Oh, there you go. Greetings. There you go. Oh, somebody can't hear us. Okay. Oh, thumbs up. Oh.
All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good to
they
go.
can hear us. No sound. Oh my goodness. Good to go. Okay. In here. All right. Listen, it is good to be back on Pastors Roundtable, and we were just talking amongst ourselves that we missed you all last week.
Yes, we sure did. Now I think Pastor Paul, you're muted. We can't hear you.
Oh yeah. Okay. Y'all must be speaking in tongues.
Yeah, you guys couldn't hear me. All right, there we go. There we go.
See what happens when you're away for a while?
See, that's it. That's it. We can't stay away so long. Get rusty.
Right.
Don't know what's going on. Mercy.
Wow. But it's good to be back, y'all. It's good to be back together.
Yes. And it's good to see all of you back with us. And let's see, who do we have with us so far today? I see Spencer Wade, who's saying Shabbat Shalom, preachers.
Yes, Spencer, my cousin from another mother. Spencer, good to have you with us.
Yeah, good.
And I see my good friend Stephanie Scott, who is a proud supporter of Pastors Roundtable. I just love me some Stephanie.
And that's South Central, right? Stephanie's in South Central?
Correct.
Bless the Lord, oh my soul. All right.
She is part of our team here.
John Mills, Dr. Mills.
Big up.
He is a part of the PRT team.
Yes.
And we are so grateful to have him a part of this ministry, Dr. John Mills.
And we see some of the regulars, Karita Phillips, Lorraine Blake. She's here with us, Rebecca Boney, and our very own, we love her to death, Miss Cindy Paul.
Hey. Yes. Wait, our very own. That's my very own.
Yes, that's our very own.
No, we're family.
We adopted her.
Yeah, you go.
Yeah, well, we praise God, man. Praise God. Well, listen. So what has been going on this week? What is that? I mean, first of all, what my man named William Shatner. Yeah. Is he still in space at 90 years old?
Wow. 90
Hey, you're never too
old.
young, man. I mean, you're never too old. You're never too old,
right.
man, to accomplish your dreams. I love it. So, what else has been going on this week, though?
But listen, he was so taken by the fact that there's blackness and whiteness. I was like, dude, you've been to different universes and you've gotten us through a lot in Star Trek. This should be nothing to you.
Right.
That was all in the edit room, brother. That was all in the edit room.
That is true.
Yeah.
Wow.
So listen, the last time we were together, let's talk about that right quick. We talked about, what was the topic of that show that we did the last time we were together? We started this series on the theological implications on social issues. And last time we talked about the vaccine. We had this conversation. We had visited it before. What was your take? How did you guys think we landed that, or what did you come away with?
I was pleased. I was excited to have Dr. Sinclair back with us from Advent Health, and he was very informative and shared some good takeaways, especially dealing with vaccine hesitancy. And he really pointed out some issues that we ought to keep in mind as we are listening and hearing all this information out there.
Yeah. I think he did an excellent job. In fact, just giving us information regarding the vaccine, because there's still hesitancy. I mean, there are people who are not really comfortable with the vaccine sometimes because of the myths that are out there. And then just the whole idea that it's, and we're going to get into a little bit that today, but it's mandated. And so giving that information was good. And one thing that I really appreciated from the presentation is that he showed us what happens when people don't take the vaccine as well. I mean, because the hospitals are full. You can't do other type of surgeries. You can't take care of other people. because most of the patients, at least here in Central Florida, that have COVID-19 and are in the hospital are unvaccinated, and they're taking up a lot of room.
Bed space,
whereas if they were vaccinated, maybe they would not be in the hospital room, which would give more space to those who needed some other type of medical intervention. So information, that's what we're here doing, just giving you information.
Absolutely. And listen, I shout out to anybody who, because I'm like, anytime you're trying to take a piece of metal and stick me with it, I'm gonna be hesitant. I guarantee you I'm gonna be hesitant. But yeah, so it's just very interesting to hear the perspective on it. And I from a personal standpoint, most of you know that I ended up burying my father not too long ago, last month, a few weeks back, and he had COVID. Went to the hospital. They could not treat him or keep him in the hospital because there were no beds. So they treated him in the hallway, and then they sent him home in an ambulance. I'd never seen a hospital, send anybody home, and they sent him home in an ambulance. They didn't say come pick him up. They said we will take him home. And it's just because there were too many other COVID patients who were already there ahead, and there was just no room. Both my parents actually had it, and both of them had to be treated. They did this infusion, but they did it out in the hallway.
Wow.
And so, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's I tell you, when we go through moments like this, I don't know. I can't even, address the way you're making it, Pastor Paul, because you are, you had to be up there with your parents, and and I know it's an honor for you to, to be there and take care of them, but then to experience a loss, and our hearts really go out to you, and we're just going to continue to pray for you, man, because we know that this is a rough road, but listen, you have a community of people, man, around you, that is definitely supporting you throughout this time.
Well, listen, I can tell you and the PRT audience this: prayer works and God works. Still in 2021, prayer works and God works. And yes, God has been doing just a marvelous thing and keeping us. And again, I thank you so much of this audience and this team for your prayers. Hey, I got to tell y'all something. I think we mentioned it before, but these guys on either side of me, these guys came to my father's funeral out in the boondocks, as well as the TJ. TJ flew in from New Jersey.
Yes.
And Pastor Wade from Nashville. That's Dr. Henry from Orlando. And I just want to, again, just let you guys know how much I appreciate the support that you have given myself and my family during this time. So love you guys, man.
Praise
Good
God.
stuff.
Praise God.
Man, praise God.
Happy to have done it. Well, we are going to move into this week's presentation. We're excited about what God is doing for PRT season 4, guys, season 4. And we're about to begin the first topic in the theological implications and social issues. And it dovetails from our last discussion on the vaccine. And so today, on the table today, we're going to be talking about the things we learned in church, the things we learned in our baptismal classes, the things we learned in Sabbath school class, the things we think we know as what we should be doing right, and how they differ from what we're seeing in the social realm, what we see in social media, what we see in the world. Some of the things that we're seeing in the world go right up against what we have been taught as Christians. And so we want to talk a little bit about that today, and we are just excited to be here to share that with you. Hopefully to encourage you to do more study, but also to encourage your understanding of your role as a Christian in today's society.
Hey, and we want you to know as the audience, you can play a part. And the biggest part that you can play right now, right out of the gate, is that we need you to share. We need you to share this stream. Right. We haven't got started yet. We haven't even told you who's at the table yet, unless you read the banner over top. But before we tell you who's at the table, we want you to go ahead and hit that share button. As a matter of fact, we know more. All you do is hit the like button. More people are going to be seeing this stream simply because the algorithm, the more you interact with the stream, the more that you type, the more that you share or hit that button, the more people have an opportunity to engage this conversation. And this is going to be a great conversation today. So we want to urge you to go ahead and share it, tag somebody, bring them into the stream today. We're looking forward to this conversation. So Dr. Henry, who, sir, is at the table today, my friend?
Well, listen, I tell you, every week, man, we're getting people who are knowledgeable, people who are excited, people who want to add to the body of knowledge. And we have somebody here at Advent University. I don't know if I stopped on my screen. I'm not too sure what's happening, but I'm going to keep on
froze
talking.
For a second.
He is a professor at Adventist University. Okay, all right. Well, he's a professor at Adventist University. He teaches in the field of bioethics. He teaches not only at Adventist University. He teaches at Adventist University, but he also was at Loma Linda before. This is the person of Dr. Andy Lampkin. He is just someone who's fired up in Jesus, and he's a preacher too. He's a preacher, he's a professor, and we have him right here on Pastor's
Can I bring him on? I can bring him on. Can we bring him on? Oh, I couldn't wait. Had to bring him on. There he is. There he is.
Heavyweight.
Advent Health University.
Exciting, brethren. Exciting. Thanks for a wonderful introduction. And thanks for the invitation. I'm absolutely delighted to be here with you this evening. And I'm so looking forward to the discussion. We're going to have a good time.
Listen, I am so in anticipation of this thing, and I think it's going to be so good. I got to hit this right out of the gate today, just because Dr. Lampkin is with us. All right.
Listen, it's our tradition, Pastor Paul. To allow our guests to say a little bit about themselves, how they want us to really be able to know them, be introduced to them. So, Pastor Paul, how many seconds we're going to give him? I don't know.
Yeah,
he's a preacher too,
so y'all messed up. You told me that he's a preacher too. So
yes, he
was
is.
a teacher. I was going to give him all kind of time, but when you threw pastor in there, preacher. So Dr. Lampkin, we're going to give you 49.7 seconds where you can just share with our audience. Just bring them a word of greeting, say hello, let them know where you are, what you're doing, anything that we missed. We know we gave you a very brief intro, but just go ahead and greet our audience today, Doc.
I'm so excited to be here again with you guys, the Pastors Roundtable, and the audience that out there watching. It's a sheer delight. A little bit about my background. Oakwood University was Oakwood College at the time when I was there. I was a student there many moons ago, studying religion and theology, then moved on and went to a little school in Nashville, Elder Wade, Vanderbilt University. And that's where I first got introduced to this topic of biomedical ethics. Did a master's degree there as well as a PhD there. And then I went back to Oakwood to teach for a few years. Had a wonderful time nurturing theology majors, students preparing for ministry as well as the general student body. Served there for a few years. Then I moved on and went out to the West Coast and spent well over a decade at Loma Linda University teaching health scientists, the same field, biomedical ethics. And we've been doing for quite a while what this discussion this evening is all about, thinking very carefully about the issues in the health sciences, thinking about medicine, and thinking about our Christian commitments and how we live out and play out those Christian commitments in the real world. So again, I'm absolutely delighted to be with you. I have a wife, Charlene, of 30 years. She's been hanging with me for 30 years. And I thank God for she's been my wife for 30 years and my friend even longer than that. Mm-hmm. And we have one son, Darius, the young man. And so, again, just glad to be here. And I'm absolutely looking forward to the discussion and the interaction with all of you guys.
Wow. Awesome.
Wow.
Awesome.
Good stuff.
Yes.
Well, listen, let's get started with a word of prayer. Right. Pastor Paul, you want to pray with us?
Hey, let's pray
for us.
All right, let's do it. Father, we invite you one more time into this discussion. We pray that you would have your way in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. All right.
Well, listen, we are so excited to have you with us, Dr. Lampkin. And again, We just want to thank you for being with us, and listen, be yourself, man. Just do your thing. We're going to ask you just one thing to do for us. Kind of move a little bit to your right so we can center on the screen. There you go. Awesome.
Did I
Awesome.
move to the right? Okay.
You went to the right. You went to the right. That's awesome. That's awesome. So listen, we are here discussing our health, our theological concepts as it comes against social issues. Generally speaking, where does science end and religion or faith or theology begin? Theology is the study of God. So where does science end, religion or faith or theology begin? And can you share with us, can the two exist in a happy medium?
Great question. I'm delighted to have this question. Actually, for a long time, and I won't bore you with all the history. Science and theology were wedded together. If you know your history, science and theology was wedded together. I think around the time of the Enlightenment, and I'll be a little clearer, definitely by the time we got to the late 18th, early 19th century, they kind of separated and went their separate ways. When I think about science, though, when I think about science, what science does for us is helps us to understand the world that we are a part of. It helps us understand ourselves and the world that we are a part of. So in many ways, science provides us with descriptions of the world and descriptions of who we are. Theology, on the other hand, as you so eloquently stated, is the study of God, and religion, even a broader concept. It's more concerned with ultimate things of ultimate value, and the like. So really, they're doing different things. They really doing different things. Science tells us about the world. It helps us understand the world that we live in, that we occupy, that we experience. And then religion, on the other hand, tells us who we are, our value, and where we're going. So very different kinds of considerations. We often get bogged down in the religion and science debate, the age of the earth and all those kinds of things. But that's a real distraction from the real question that they're actually doing different things.
Wow. And do you see them living in the same space?
Oh, absolutely. Where we're going today, I think in the discussion, I was sharing with a group of friends and colleagues not so long ago. The Adventist Church, in many ways, wedded itself to science. I mean, we run healthcare institutions all over the world. They are engaged in scientific medicine, so absolutely, the two they can ride on the same path together, and they do. Do they ever disagree? Of course they do, but for the most part, they can ride on the same path with one another.
Wow.
All right. Well, listen, so when we talk about medical interventions, there's often this crossroads where religion or faith intersects with medical intervention. And many people, I guess before we get into some of the nitty-gritty, I guess we got to figure out, is it our theology then that should inform the science of medical interventions? Or should the science inform our theology? In other words, there are. Well, let me not complicate it by adding other words. Let me leave it. Let's leave it at that. Should our theology inform the science, or should the science inform the theology? And do we know of any instances where either or may be the right approach? And I'll give some examples of that last one. But let's start with those first two. Should the theology inform the science, or should the science inform the theology?
Great question. So again, the science kind, it tells us what is, right? That's what we're talking about, the description. So I was clear. Science tells us what is. Oftentimes we say religion or theology tells us what should be.
Okay.
You know, that's when I use the language of value. So one tells us what is, the other one tells us what should be. So the science gives us a glimpse of reality. Our religion tells us how we ought to operate within that reality. So again, I'm trying to push beyond that either or, that they are complementary. You know, both are at work at the exact same time. Now, when you look at particular medical interventions, and I was hearing a bit of that in the questions. Do you participate in organ transplantation? That's a big, huge one. Then we have to think about our theological beliefs, our theological commitments, our values, and the like, and raise that tough question: is it appropriate? Am I getting at your question? Is it appropriate?
Yeah. Let's do this, Doc.
Question.
Because I want to make this as clear as we can for our audience.
Please.
Because we had some conversation last night, and you rolled off a litany of specific things that where faith and science interface. Can we articulate what some of those things are, where people have, because generally somebody has, I don't know, you get a cut. Nobody has really a big religious problem with putting a Band-Aid on it. So that's a Band-Aid is a medical intervention. But what are some of the medical interventions in general that we find that a lot of different faith communities do question or have some challenges with? What are some of those things?
I hit a few of the big ones, and I will encourage and invite the listening audience and viewing audience, that is, to look at the Seventh-day Adventist Church's official website and look at the official statements. A big one that comes up all the time as it relates to a medical intervention doesn't relate so much to Seventh-day Adventists, but it does relate to religious folk, Jehovah Witness, and the refusal to accept blood. They do that out of deep theological commitments of not consuming any blood from the Leviticus laws. You know, Adventists breaks that, not consuming blood, but they understand that to mean that they shouldn't participate in blood transfusions and the like. As we all know, the Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church, takes a stance against abortion for similar reasons. The fundamental value of human life, we're going to talk more about that, as situated in Genesis and in the Ten Commandments and the like. Fertility treatments, in vitro fertilization, fertility treatments. A lot of religious traditions have some issues with that. And the church, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, actually has a statement on the use of infertility. Again, organ donations, whether or not you should receive an organ or whether or not you should give an organ. All of these that I'm talking about, and I just laid out a few, and there are others, have deep religious significance as you stop and think about it. Because human beings, right? We didn't just crawl out of the water, so to speak, or just fall down through space. We were created in the image of God. And human beings, you know, display the image of God. And human beings have value and worth. And we use word shortcut terms like human dignity and worth, that we have to be careful as it relates to those kinds of interventions if we want to be faithful to what God is requiring us. Because we don't own our bodies. See,
all right.
We don't own our bodies.
Well,
in American society, we oftentimes think of autonomy and ownership, and we own our body. But for the Christian, we're simply stewards, caretakers of these bodies. So hence, we don't own them. So we always have to be responsible to the one who really owns them. That's why these questions are so important.
So we see some of these things. They play not just in the a role in the life of the receiver or the recipient of the intervention, but also sometimes in the provider, right? because we know that there are some providers who say, I'm not going to do an abortion based on my religious faith, or I'm not going to do this sexual what do they call it? Not reorientation.
Treatment. Yeah.
I'm talking about when people do like sex changes. They want to go from male to female. A provider may say, hey, I'm not about that. I'm not, that's my, and so there may be even some legal, type of things that go in line with some of those, just like we see, the baker situation. The baker says, I'm not going to bake this cake for this, this is a same-sex wedding. I don't believe in that. And we saw they were legal implications for that. Could there be some of the legal implications for, that's what I was looking for, Stephanie, reassignment. But those are all, things that have to do with where faith intersects medical treatment or that. So and if you guys have any other questions, those to our audience, if you guys have any other instances of things where you see where people have some struggle with medical procedures or medical interventions, and in the realm of faith. We see vaccines. This is coming up.
Okay,
that's coming up soon, right?
The vaccine.
Are we gonna get to hang out there for a little bit at some point?
Yeah,
we hang out before we go there. So, and I like the way Pastor Paul framed that question. So there's a follow-up question here. So now let's get to the church member, the individual.
But,
of course,
before you get there,
okay, go ahead.
I don't want us to jump ahead, but I think Dr. Lampkin pointed out something very basic that I want us to explore.
Sure.
We talked about the issue of our faith understanding and the health intervention that we're looking for. Some people simply stated, you brought out the fact that our bodies is the temple of God, doesn't belong to us. And we are now beginning, some of us have used that as a crutch for when it works best for our situation, not realizing we were stewards. How can we pick and choose, or is there a balance or a situation where we pick and choose the things we want to be, to hold up as intervention? For instance, I think Pastor Paul said it well. With when we get a cut, we don't think nothing about putting iodine and putting a Band-Aid on it, and we keep on moving. But the moment that becomes a major issue, should I, do I need to go under the knife? Do I need it? Where should we, who really don't have the information or just want to choose, we just want to jump on the side of faith because it's safer? You understand what I'm trying to say? We would jump behind the faith thing because we believe that's where we should be as Christians, and not really look to find what the issue is. Can
I help with that a little bit, or push a little further, Dr. Wade? So it's not just because we're more comfortable, I think, with the faith. It's because we don't have an expectation of being able to explain faith. We don't feel like we have to have a rationale behind it. Whereas if it's science, so if it's faith and we don't understand it, we're okay. But if it's science, we feel like we have to understand all the moving parts, and if we don't, we're uncomfortable. So we tend to be more comfortable leaning behind or leaning on something that we feel like we're not even ever supposed to have all of the answers when it comes to faith.
So Pastor Paul, and I like this conversation. Is there a degree of faith that we need to have in science? Is there a little degree of faith that we have to have in science? And then the whole idea, Dr. Lampkin, that you mentioned, remember, I think you mentioned that our body is not our own, right? This is the temple of God, right? So is there a responsibility that we have to the community with what we do as far as our healthcare decisions? I want to know if you could address that. Is there a responsibility that we have to our community as we deal with our own healthcare decisions, or should we just make these decisions in a vacuum?
Okay, hold up. I got a timeout. So Dr. Wade just asked a question. And we just skipped by the question.
You got to write these things down, man. We're going.
This is going to be Dr. Lampkin's easiest interview. He didn't have to say nothing. We just kept on asking questions and questions.
Hey, but no, listen. I have complete confidence in Dr. Lampkin.
Great question. I mean, they're all great questions.
You can just wrap it together.
Unpacking. I mean, they really were. I use that language of unpacking and making sense out of them. There's so many things that are on the table right now. We may have to go back and refresh my memory. I'm an old man now, and so I can't remember them all. But again, there was a question about the interventions and how do we decide on interventions. We don't think twice about putting a Band-Aid on a cut. I actually like that because it's simple and straightforward. Mm-hmm. We sometimes, and I hate to use this language I'm about to use, we sometimes make a distinction between ordinary care and extraordinary care.
Okay.
Ordinary care and extraordinary care. So, to take a couple aspirins, or take a Tylenol, or put on a Band-Aid. If you break your arm, to put it in a splint. Those aren't major kinds of considerations, are they? If you stop and reflect on it, not too deep.
Putting on a pair of eyeglasses.
Those things that care for the body, and they're simple and they straightforward. No one to be harmed in the process. Go for it. It gets a little bit more trickier when you're talking about major medical interventions that are extraordinary. Does that make any sense? So then you have to think more carefully. You have to think more theologically. You have to think more deeply. Someone says, "I'm looking at the chat. Don't alter the DNA," and we're gonna talk about that. The church actually has a statement on genetic editing. Mm-hmm. No, this is real. This is real.
And somebody else, Doc,
because we can alter our DNA. We can alter the genes, which impacts the species forevermore.
Yeah.
You can work it at two levels. You can alter Dr. Henry's DNA and it just impact him, or you can go into the reproductive line and it impact its offspring.
Yeah.
Those are two different kind of interventions.
Right.
And we got to make sense of those kinds of things. I know we just jumped in real deep, real fast. And
hey, but some of our folk are there, Doc. We got
to take our time. That's what I say. We got to take our time and sort these things out, because in each of the questions that are raised, they are absolutely huge. Then there is this question: what are our obligations to ourselves as stewards? And then what are our obligations to our fellow human being? We use the language. Loma Linda University has a school of public health. So the Adventist Church, we have a school of public health. So our health does function on those two different levels, right? We have to take care of ourselves as individuals, but we also have to take care of the body politic, meaning we have to be concerned with the society as well. See, that's what's so deep about what's happening right now with COVID-19 and the vaccine. So it's not just a personal decision. The personal decision has social or community implications. And so we have to be mindful of those things. And let me say something about the faith, that is Christian faith. That is one of the things that made Christians stand out from the inception of the Christian church, the first century Christian church, and then following, is that we've always been concerned with the well-being of ourselves and the well-being of our neighbors. Wow. Okay. Jesus did more healing than preaching.
Okay. Yeah.
He was always concerned. And then the apostles, let's be a little clearer, they took up that ministry. Mm-hmm. And then the Christian church took up that ministry. And the Christian church is the one that actually, in the West, that is, definitely during the Middle Ages, but even before, they built these big healthcare institutions that we know today as hospitals because of that public and that social concern. That make any sense?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I think that was one other question.
You made it very clear that as a Christian, it seems as if how I interact with the community carries a lot of weight as opposed to how I interact with me as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Uh,
Listen,
you
we
know,
got to pick something, guys. I want to
absolutely important.
pick something and drill down on it,
Yeah.
as Doc said, because some of these questions they're coming, and I want to we can back up, Doc. There was the question that you mentioned, and that at least two folk in our audience mentioned about the gene editing piece. Let's talk about that for a moment. So Chris Chung put in the gene editing and talked about the CRISPR technology. There's a whole swath of our church and of our membership who've seen some videos and things on CRISPR technology and the gene editing, and it's been linked to vaccines and so when it comes to theology and we're made in the image of God, when people we've been tampering with genetics in fruit and animals for years, right? So people are eating tomatoes that are crossed with spiders and with fish and all kind of stuff. The genes have been crossed so that they can grow better in different environments and all that kind of. A lot of people may not be aware of that, but those are things that geneticists have been doing for decades now. And now they're toying with the idea, at least they're talking about toying with the idea of being able to change the color of people's eyes, or somebody put in being able to make humans less prone to diabetes or to cancer or whatnot by modifying the genetic code. Is there a theological position of the Adventist Church, or is there a theological position that Christians ought to have? Is there a biblical position that we're aware of that speaks to the modification of the intentional modification of the genetic code?
It's a great set of questions, and I think I can get at that a little bit. Um, as we think about the question, and as we think about using technologies like CRISPR, we should use the greatest amount of caution. Again,
Mm.
for some of the theological reasons we already talked about, that we are stewards of God's creation. We're not owners of God's creation. And so it's one thing to alter me, Andy Lampkin. It's one thing to alter me for uh, physicians, scientists to go in and alter my DNA a bit, because it's going to affect me. But when we move to the next level and considering again uh, interventions that might impact or will indeed impact the next generation, that's problematic,
Or
because
people who don't have a choice in the matters, basically.
that's
Yeah.
exactly what we're getting at. We've always taught in the Christian tradition
Yeah.
that is, we have a responsibility to kind of leave the world a certain place, and meaning that when we leave and pass off this scene, we shouldn't have impacted it in certain kinds of ways. We don't have a right to affect the gene pool forevermore.
Mm.
We can talk about all kinds of, I pause a little bit because I didn't want to go down that road. The Frankenstein scenarios. The problem with altering the genes is that we don't know what we're doing.
Mm.
We can't know exactly what we're doing because there's this really, really, really complex relationships between the genes and the environment.
Okay.
And what we know, not what we think, not what we believe, what we know is that seldom accounting for ourselves, it's not just one gene at work. There are multiple genes at work. So that's why we always say we should exercise the greatest amount of caution. Uh, our faith teaches us this.
Listen.
The
That's
Adventist
right.
church statements on this teach us this. But here it is. Even when you look at what the government, our society has said, and the community of research scientists, they say we should exercise great caution when we talk about making changes to the species. Now, and I know we don't use that language a lot around
Yeah.
in our churches,
Right, right.
impacting the species,
Yeah,
homo
that's the common
sapiens. So
language there.
that language may be, disruptive a little bit, but we don't have a right. Let me just say it plainly: we don't have a right to, alter our children and our children's children and our children's children's children. We don't have that. We don't have that.
I don't know. I gotta
Wow.
throw this
I
in there,
mean,
and I'm
we
about
got-
to mess somebody up. But
Yeah.
but it
Yeah.
sounds. I'm sorry, but it almost sounds a little bit like 1930s Nazi Germany. They're saying, nah, y'all don't have to. We should not mix with Jews. They're gonna mess up the bloodlines and mess up the genetics. You should not have interracial marriages in 1900s in the United States. And those were some of the same arguments that we heard about those sort of social connections and interactions, that it was going to mess up the gene pool. We hear it now. People make jokes that, so-and-so, if so-and-so and so-and-so get together, they're going to mess up the gene pool. y'all need to, no, that's not a... So some pastors may have given some of that counsel before. But yeah, and we kind of do that somewhat flippantly, but yeah, I think some of those are the basis of some of the things that have caused a whole lot of hurt and pain and ostracism. How do you say that word, in the past? And so again, here's this thing where theology this intersection between theology and medical interventions.
A couple, read the
Eugenics,
chat a
that's
little bit.
the word I was
Somebody
looking
used
for,
the
Daphne.
language of eugenics. That's what you're referring to.
Yeah.
In the 30s, eugenics, the whole logic of eugenics is to improve the species.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The EU good, to improve the species. The problem with that, and somebody's capturing some of these things, that certain groups were thought to be inferior, so you didn't mix those two together, and so
Mm-hmm.
that was the problem with eugenics, and eugenics is problematic on many levels. We should be very careful and we should be cautious, because we don't know what we're going to end up with. And so what I'm arguing, that we have to be careful about the gene pool and the genetic diversity that exists. Clearly, this is actually funny when you think about it. Human beings, we make choices all the time. And so we're constantly editing ourselves, the next generation, but that process is super slow. You choose that for the young ladies out there, you choose that handsome young man based on certain traits, tall, dark, and handsome. That's what they used to like to say. And then for our brothers, we make other choices, and so we're making choices that impact the future generation
Already.
the time. That's the reality.
Right.
So we make choices all the time, but to intervene at a scientific level, at a biological level, using some of these very fancy technologies, we can do overnight what would take hundreds of years to do. And that's substantively different, if that makes any sense. And again, you can't control it. And so, oh my gosh, as we learn about, we know where, again, genes interact with the environment, but we have identified certain genes and what certain genes are doing. I mean, there can be genetic enhancements in such a way that you build human beings that they are faster, that they stronger, that they see farther, that they live longer. We can just go on and on and
All right.
on.
That's Superman.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Superman.
I mean, that's exactly right. That's
soldiers.
That's real, and so you have to play that out. And then I'm gonna touch the social justice piece and get away from it real quick. Then you have that dynamic that in a society you can create, a new eugenics campaign in a real subtle way for those who have resources and those who don't.
Wow.
I mean, we already do that with education. If you think about it, those who have resources, they can send their kids to certain quality of schools. They can get them tutorials, and you go on and on and on, which advantages them. Now, if you can advantage people biologically,
Wow.
I mean, just think that through. Think about the
But wait,
implications of that, where it's not random anymore, that you're picking and choosing. Maybe what they were doing in Nazi Germany, they were onto something, that you can create a master race. When I first started learning about this, a scientist said this to me, and it shocked me. This is when they've completed the Human Genome Project, but this is when it was just beginning. Francis Collins led that team about 20 years ago. They use the language of he. He who controls the genes controls the world.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I can unpack that some more, but he who controls the genes controls the world, and there's something to that.
I heard it said this way: she who rocks the cradle controls the world.
Come on,
That's true. That's true as well. But as Paul talks about genetically altered foods and the like. See, this is why some of us go natural ways. Genetically altered food and the like. When you understand how those genes work, and you can figure out ways you can alter that species. You can alter our species again. Sorry to use that language again.
Wow.
And I mean, it's moving at a very, very, very deep level. This is why I began with this word of caution, and we should exercise extreme caution when you have this kind of power. This is a kind of power that no other generation has experienced. See, this is what you got to get. No other generation has experienced the power that's in that gene. And that we understand that gene. No other generation has had that power.
Over the last 10 minutes, as you were sharing, Dr. Lampkin, I began to feel that my faith and my understanding of the theological implications actually informs my decision on how I interact or intersect with science. Is what I'm hearing as the God that, or the person or the thing that helps to inform my scientific embracement, if I could say that, so that the things that I do is based on my faith. But the question is it based on a certain level of faith, or is it based on the faith I have, the measure of faith I have?
No, I think that was so well articulated. Yeah, our faith is influencing our. I got about that in a long way. Our faith is influencing how we think about that, and I think it is our individual faith. And here it is. I was speaking with the brothers yesterday on this. We as a faith community need to do more work there.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got to be humble sometimes and be honest. Sometimes we have to do more work there. What got me so excited about these kinds of discussions, and I'm trying to maintain my excitement, keep it toned down a little bit. I want y'all to invite me back sometime. Say, man, he acted a plum. I'm trying to keep cool. So what excites me about this topic in this discussion and where we're going, and you all got to get this. The technology is moving so fast.
Wow.
That we can't keep up theologically, because theologians think too slow.
Wow.
Stop.
And I ain't picking on theologians.
Wait a minute.
It's not just the theologians. The law can't keep up.
Mercy.
I mean, everybody, I should say everybody, but those of us who work in this arena, we talk about this all the time, that the technology is moving so fast, and the way our law works, the way theology works, the way our moral thinking works is based on past precedents. So we think about the future based on what happened in the past, but we're in a whole new arena.
Wow. And the theology says,
have we seen these things? So we have to think about it anew. And here it is. This is what I'm getting at. So as we train that next generation of ministers and theologians, and we have health scientists on the line, I can see it from the tone of the chat. We have to think about the ethical and the moral implications, and we can't assume that it's already been figured out.
Wow.
Because it's like we're flying the plane. The plane is up. Yeah. We 30,000 feet up, y'all. We can't stop. We got to keep moving, and we got to make decisions while we're rolling. That's what we are.
Yeah,
that's what we are. And that ain't easy. That ain't easy. That's when you have to put on the big person's pants.
Daphne said, Lord, help us.
Think hard and think carefully.
I like what you said, Doc. This thing is moving so fast.
Here it is. And be willing to be wrong and start over.
Now, Doc, wait a minute now. You just dropped a bomb right there. You dropped the bomb. You just dropped the bomb. Be willing to start over, because I think we're moving fast just based on our conversation, that even our mission probably has been impacted by the movement of science versus probably some of the fundamental things that we started off with. But look, it leads us right here. And we just got to go there, Doc. And I'll get in trouble with my guys. We're going to go here.
No, let's do it. I'm with you.
Wait. You don't even know where I'm going. So
he said, but I'm with you because it feels good. He like the feels right now.
We're brothers for life, man. We're brothers for life. That's what
I might not agree with you, but I'm with you.
But look, I want to go because there's so many great things we're talking about. But I think that, we...
The Lord don't want you to say it.
COVID-19 vaccination that has caused wait a minute, and we might get that has caused a lot of stir within the community, especially within the household of faith.
You got to back that up because we lost you.
We lost you. Okay, watch it. So this COVID-19 vaccination, the vaccine, has caused a lot of stir within the community of faith, specifically within our church. And maybe it's, just based on social media, based on comments, based on talking to members and so forth. It has caused a significant stir to the point where there are some people within the church, anti-vaxxers, but even there's some that even go a little bit beyond. They're saying, listen, why the mask and the mask wearing it? The children that wear it to school, it damages their interaction with the students in the classroom and the teacher, and there's a psychological impact that it has. We have all this stuff. So my question to you is, what are these theological arguments that are surrounding this COVID-19 vaccination? What are they? What have you been hearing, Doc?
Yeah, that is an absolutely great question, because it's so much that's being said out there, and you laid out several of the arguments being made out there. I think some of it of what we're hearing, and I'm gonna frame it positively. I think of some of what we're hearing from certain communities. And again, this is a positive framing of it. It's kind of a naturalistic thing. It's a natural law, and that's a theological tradition. Natural law, and we don't want to break nature's laws. We want to be consistent with a certain kind of simplicity and natural living. And this intervention, particularly the vaccine, they're asking us to go beyond that. That's a positive twist. And I think there is a community of people out there who feel that some of what we're hearing, I'm just going to be honest, it's just out there. It's irrational. You can't really wrap your head around what's going on. The church actually has a statement on immunization. I dare not read it, but we've thought about these things before. And so there is something called peer review evidence base. The church accepts that. Peer review evidence based. So we follow the science. We listen to the science. We pay attention to the science. And then the church also allows people, individual conscience, to make one's own choice as it relates to these things. And so, Dr. Henry, I know I didn't get directly at your question, because again, there's so much out there. You hear so many anecdotes. It's just hard to get at what's going on. But as an institution, as a church, and churches and institutions have a responsibility to guide their members, right? To guide their followers, to direct their followers. And where our church is on this issue, the stance that we take is evidence-based science, evidence-based research, and that's what we should follow. And some of the other stuff, we would have to come and take it on, and I'm not being clear, take it on one by one, and engage them. Some of the things I've heard is just kind of been extreme, and again, just don't know how to get at that kind of extreme thinking in a way that, here it is. Let me say this. And somebody said I went out for a minute. In a way that you can operationalize. See, that's the thing.
Yeah.
When you talking about just, a few people here or there in your family, a way that you can operationalize for a community of 18 to 20 million believers. We got to provide guidance for all of them folk, right? Yeah. And so we got to think about that. And some of this vaccine discourse, the anti-vaxxers, the vaxxers, I don't care where you are on it. You just got to be reasonable and responsible because of what's at stake. Yeah. And some of the discourse and some of the discussion we have in here in the United States of America, and people not wanting to vaccinate, we know it works. There are people all over the world that are dying every day that don't have access to this vaccine. So we have a lifeboat. I like to use that metaphor. We have a lifeboat. God has thrown us a lifeboat. It's up to us to get in it.
And there's a quote down here. There's a question down here. It says, the Adventist Church advocates for a holistic approach to health. Can we really be surprised that people want to go the natural route? Right?
That is quite eloquent, and it's a beautiful question. And the quick answer is we can't be surprised. We shouldn't be surprised. They just articulated what I was trying to communicate, is that's what we advocate, this kind of holistic, naturalistic approach. We use the language like holism. And we can absolutely spell out what some of those things are. So no, we shouldn't be surprised at all. We shouldn't be surprised at all, and we ought to respect that. We ought to respect that, and we ought to live in that, and we ought to thrive in that. But that's not having that understanding, that holistic approach that the viewer is advocating isn't over against the scientific peer review. They're not in conflict with one another. Yeah. They can actually complement one another. We like to say in the church that what Sister White was shown many years ago, medical science has confirmed. Right? We like to use that language. Yep. So again, they're not. They complement each other. Yeah. They don't clash naturally, at least not in my mind.
Doc, I'd like to push that, and Dion, Dr. Henry, I'd like to push that, what you mentioned, a little bit further. So what the Adventist Church advocates, they advocate for this holistic approach. I've heard this argument, and I think we've bantered it about a little bit, but that the Adventist Church, let me see if I can do this well, because of there is something intrinsic within Adventism that is very attractive to people who have a bent to conspiracy theories, right? And what is that thing? I mean, when you look at our understanding of prophecy, and I'm not saying we're wrong. I think we're absolutely correct. But when we look at Scripture and we go and we find and identify, when we go through Daniel and Revelation, we identify organizations and people by name that Scripture does not, identify by name. we attract a certain type, generally a certain type of person. So when it comes to things like this vaccine, I think it should be no surprise that there's also a lot of conspiracy theories that are either birthed or just simply circulated among us as Adventists. Now, you throw black people on top of that.
Come on,
got to do it.
I was just thinking about that, Pastor Paul.
So now, you're not just Adventists, but you're black Adventists and Black in America Adventists. You've got, I mean, we grew up knowing that the government, this is the government vaccine. This isn't Loma Linda doing the vaccine. This is the government, the same government that put smallpox in blankets and gave it to the Indians, the same government that created this event in Tonkin Bay and then blamed it on the Koreans. All of these type of things. The same government who did experiments on syphilis and the Tuskegee experiments on black folk. This is, and it's like, so now now you've got an early 2020. This vaccine is not out yet, but the communities that were most impacted by death and severe hospitalization were black and brown people in America. So if anybody seems to have a reason to be skeptical or to be hesitant, I don't know anybody greater than black Adventist folk who I get some of the hesitancy there.
But Pastor Paul, I have to be honest with you. When I looked at the syphilis situation here in Alabama, I'm now in South Central, the folks who were affected, the families who have been affected by it, they are now speaking out in favor of the vaccine because their biggest thing is this. The issue that happened then is so different than the issue that is happening now. But we have not shared the real story, or we really don't know the story because we pick up on one aspect of it, or they experimented on black people. But yes, they did do that. But the reason those black folks suffered from the syphilis, they denied them the vaccine. They denied them the vaccine. Now here we are in 2020, and we can get the vaccine, but we don't want it because they experimented on us back then. And so the question that I'm hearing is that it's not about what they did in the past. We have to find out what exactly did they do so that we are not comparing apples and oranges, because that can be deadly.
Right.
That is what's killing us. And I think that is some of the basics in terms of why black families or black communities were hit harder, because we don't have health care. It's not because the COVID-19 was anything greater. It was that because we didn't take care of ourselves before the virus showed up. So we have to be careful how we package stuff. And
it's not the packaging, Doc. It's not the idea that that there are not answers to those things. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of trying to put a finger on some of the reasons why there is this hesitancy and this distrust. Yeah. I mean, 2020, black people, we've seen government, police, all of this kind of stuff seems to be stacked against black folk in America. At least that was the world that we were living in. And so, those are things. Dr. Lampkin,
But just to add to it, Dr. Lampkin, maybe you could speak to it. Why do we want to generalize and find the answer to these issues when, based on what you shared with us today, I picked up there are so many variations and variants out there that sometimes what I may want to do in one situation, I'm not going to do in the other situation.
No, this is good, and I think you both are absolutely right in what you were communicating. I think you both spot on. This is what we call one of those both and kind of considerations. You really just helped us understand something big and something extremely important. The vaccine hesitancy, it's not an irrational response. It's a quite rational response in light of the history, right? If you understand the history that Pastor Paul laid out, you catch the vaccine hesitancy. It makes sense. It's a rational response. One should be cautious. One should be careful to be sure. But Pastor Wade is also right. We need to understand that Tuskegee syphilis thing a little better to make sure we're applying apples to the apples and oranges to the oranges, because it was a very different kind of situation. But the way Tuskegee is used in the community, it actually just stands as a precautionary tale, right? It's like, remember Tuskegee. It's like sometimes when you guys preach the parable, remember X, Y, and Z, and then the people know how to fill in the blank. You don't even have to fill it in.
Right,
I did a study one time, and I was looking at trying to make sense of, how Tuskegee is understood and used in the Black community. And it's a fascinating thing. A lot of people really don't know the details. But the detail doesn't matter because of the harm and the damage that was done.
Right. And that's the point. Yeah. That's the point I was making.
It's a profound point. And here's the thing. I fault, and I shouldn't say fault or put blame. The medical community actually needed to do a better job in helping relieve some of those fears and those concerns as it relates to, and it's if we had time, and it's not just Tuskegee, but there have been other things, a whole history. Tuskegee in many ways, it represents research abuse, but it also represents a history of neglect, of neglecting a population. For years, we talked about 47 million Americans didn't have access to healthcare. Many of these folk were Black and brown folk. And I think that's where Elder Wade was also, getting at. So these kinds of considerations are real, and we have to talk about these things and get them on the table. We need to talk more in our churches about it. One thing that's powerful and wonderful about the Adventist Church, we have so many providers, right, and healthcare scientists that are sitting in our pews.
Yeah.
We have no excuse for helping our community really understand this stuff a lot better than we actually are actually doing. So here it is. We still got some more work to do. So that hesitancy, the caution, I say it's legitimate, but you also got to really think carefully and cautiously and say that it appears that the vaccine's working. So to be prudent for yourself, and to be prudent for your family, and to be prudent for your community, you at least got to give it some serious consideration instead of just dismissing it out of hand and saying, here we go again. It's another Tuskegee, because it's really not another Tuskegee.
Sure. Listen, we've got just a few minutes left, gentlemen. Dr. Henry and Pastor Wade, you guys, I'm going to dip again. Dion got to do it, so I'm going to do it this time. So let's talk, because let's talk about Dr. Lampkin. And we mentioned this again last night too.
You brothers are rough. You're rough, but I'm loving it. I don't like it. I love it.
So here we go. So the Adventist healthcare system. Let's go there. Let's talk about this Adventist healthcare system.
Third rail.
So yeah, it's the right arm of the health message. It's the entering wedge. Many people are going to come and say, okay, we have all of this theology and all of this Ellen White, which whether we want to classify Ellen White as theology or not, that's always going to be debatable. Counsel, let's go with that. We got all this counsel, and there's a whole swath of our Adventist community who are going to look at what they read in Ellen White and what she says, and then they're going to look at the Adventist health system and say, this doesn't look nothing like this, what I read over here in 2020. And it seems that some are going to say that it seems like the Adventist healthcare system has divorced itself totally from the theological underpinnings of what we believed. And again, you can debate whether counsel is theology or not, but that is part of the debate. How do we respond? Is is the Adventist healthcare system based on, and Dion, you articulated this the other day, and I thought the way you said it, and I'm trying to remember how you said it, but yeah, how Adventist or how biblical is what we see in our Adventist healthcare system today? That's a dangerous question. I want to.
Wow. Hey, listen, what we do at the Pastor Roundtable, man, we talk about issues, right?
Yeah, we got to do it. I'm gonna go in. Since I got this far, I'm gonna go in a little deeper. So I grew up in a church and in a home where Adventists didn't do tea and coffee. We preached the caffeine. We preached hard the benefits and whatnot of a plant-based diet, all those things. And yet now people go into an Adventist hospital, and there's a Coca-Cola machine. You can get coffee, you can get tea, you can get all the other kind of stuff. You can get meat served not just in your room, but you can get flesh served in the cafeteria. And we're making money off of some of those type of things. And people are saying, this doesn't look anything like the healthcare that we thought our theology was based on, the mission of our church and the connection of the mission with the healthcare system. I read in Spirit of Prophecy where Ellen White says that our doctors ought to be ordained or commissioned or permitted to baptize people. And yet we can go in some of our institutions and the healthcare saying is, well, healthcare is our business, not mission. That's the church's job, but our job is over here. Again, in many cases, people will make the argument that it looks so different. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, that's a really tough question. One of the things we have to sort out is this issue. I've done this a lot this evening. Is just what is the health message, right?
Okay.
You know, I wrote a dissertation a while back. My doctoral dissertation. It was a critical study of the Seventh-day Adventist health teaching tradition. Critical study of the Seventh-day Adventist health teaching tradition, right? Affectionately known, preachers, as the health message, right? And so, we call it the health message. I grew up in the same kind of household, in the same kind of church, Pastor Paul, that you did. But at the core, we got to get it at the core. What is the core of the health teaching tradition? God intends the well-being of creation. God is concerned with your well-being, your striving, your thriving, your flourishing. God expects from us to live healthfully. That's the core of the health message. Now, how that plays out in the world, and I get you. You gotta sort it out. Coffee and tea. At a hospital or at a clinic, is that a violation of our health message? Having pepper, I went to one place,
cinnamon,
and some place I'm looking, I'm like, they got all the salt, but ain't no pepper. Where's the pepper?
Yeah.
I need a little pepper on my head.
Salt and no pepper.
Salt and no pepper. But see, they were trying to operationalize.
But the theology, Doc, is that you are the salt of the world. That's the theology.
Not the pepper of the world. I got you.
Not the pepper. You are the salt. I'm just messing with you.
In the black church, we'll see the pepper.
But the challenge is, how do you operationalize the health messages, and what does it really look like in the 21st century? I think that's the challenge that our health systems actually have. And all honestly, I think it's a work in progress.
Yeah.
They are attempting to live out our faith commitments. These institutions understand themselves, and I understand them to be extending the healing ministry of Jesus. And I think it's beyond that slogan. I think they're working at that. But again, what that absolutely ought to look like in the 21st century, I think that's the discussion that needs to be had, and we need to keep talking about that. Those 19th century, the church's health message emerged in the 19th century, and a lot of the early thrust of the health teachings, they find their origins there. But few I dare say any of those institutions have actually survived. We don't have sanitariums anymore. I think you have places, and I don't want to call the names of those places because you know that they're out there doing the natural remedies and the like.
Sure. Yeah.
I think they're trying to emulate the sanitariums, but that model didn't
Struggle.
survive with scientific medicine. So I think the challenge is, how do you appropriate that deep and fundamental commitment that the church has for advancing the health of its people and of the people they are called to serve in the 21st century? What does that look like?
Okay. So basically what I hear you saying, Doc, is that those places that tried doing it that way, financially, they were unsustainable. Is that what I'm hearing?
It's the financial component is there. We talked about evidence-based healthcare, evidence-based health research. All that is at work.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think we need to have the discussion and just put it on the table. I'll complicate it a little bit more. The healthcare system in our country is quite complicated. It's not just the hospitals and the clinics. It's a $3 trillion industry. It's lots of money goes into research and the knowledge that we glean and the knowledge that we gain, and then we apply that knowledge in real ways on real everyday people. So there's a whole lot of reasons why that model, that sanitary model, just didn't exist.
Before we change here, you made a comment about the fact. I think Pastor Paul talked about the fact that we find coffee and tea in the building, the caffeine situation, and the hospitals not wanting to deal with it. Could it be society change because the norms now are so relative? Everyone can do what they want. We don't want to offend anybody. So we kind of want to just get along, per se. So the organization doesn't take certain stance to, could it be that? Or could it be our expectations of those of us who look at the healthcare system? We don't look at it as something else. We try to look at it as ours, but we don't see ours in it. We don't see what we believe in it.
Yeah, that's why I think it's critical to get at that core. What do we actually believe? It's the difference it's the difference in prescription and description. If you catch what I'm saying, we don't prescribe every single element as to how people ought to live. If you go back and look at some of the documentaries about the John Harvey Kellogg and the early evidence, a lot of exciting stuff. Getting them up at 6 o'clock in the morning and start exercising them on the field. You've seen the videos. Would you commend that? And so you got to play it out. So why pick on salt and pepper? I'm just using this as an example.
Sure, yeah.
Why pick on salt and pepper and the caffeine when there's some other things that we couldn't be, considering? And so it's a part of the issue is the prescription kind of issue. How much of it do you prescribe, or do we get at the core teachings or the core values of the health message and emphasize that? It would be curious to sit down with, I think, hospital administrators, or at least those who made those kinds of decisions to accept those places where you could find, a Coke machine or coffee, and get at what was actually going on. I can't, just to be honest, I can speculate, but I can't honestly answer that because I haven't been a part of those discussions, and I want to be cautious and I want to be careful. But I've seen patients, and I know a few of you, if not all of you, have done some chaplaincy work. If patients, as they visit their family members, if they can't get what they want, they will get up and walk right across the street and go get what they can.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of those practical kind of considerations. And I'm not saying that it was a practical decision that was made. I just don't know. I'm being very honest when I'm saying that. But I'm also being very, very real. And we've had these kinds of experience. The patients, they go, not the patients, but the patient's family go down to the hospital cafeteria, and they confront it with things they just haven't seen, and they don't know what to do with that.
Yeah.
I mean, we have to be real and honest about who we're serving and the populations of people that we're serving. I suspect that goes a bit into a bit of that
discussion.
And we can all talk about, our ideal standards. And I think we should talk about our ideal standards for ourselves, for our families, and for our churches. But when we're serving the world, I think we have to be mindful of that. When people who are in the hospitals, oftentimes in very vulnerable situations, desperate situations, is this the time to introduce them to things there? I mean, you just got to think about it a little bit. Things they don't know what they need to eat, right? We need to get them healthy, and
but
you don't
Dr.
want
Lampkin,
pushing it around on the plate like you do at Sabbath dinner. Come on now. I can't wait till this dinner is over and let me make that quick stop.
You need to leave potluck alone.
That's right. But listen, and even in considering the constituents that we are serving, I think there are some things that we do not do like other hospitals, right? So there's still this theological undertoning that we even have at our hospitals, our hospital system as well. And the question, and I see we're running out of time. I think we need to do like just one show on healthcare, right?
Right, just on
healthcare. But and here's a question for thought. I would say that within our context, as we deal with our theology, and as we interact with medical interventions, right?
Sure.
Because theology impacts our medical, the interventions that we use medically. And if we do not keep in mind, as well as ourselves within the theology,
Doc, we lost you as we keep in mind. You paused on us. We didn't hear all of it.
Oh, okay.
As we keep in mind, and then
so we ought to keep in mind as we make these decisions with medical interventions, we have to keep in mind our community, our family. There's a family a few years ago in Australia, you've heard probably the story, Adventist family, who refused medical intervention. They wanted to go a holistic way, but then their son died after the science repeatedly told them, hey, listen, we can help, we can intervene. But they said, no, we want to go the natural way, and their son died. In fact, they were, they had to go through law, the court system because of that, right? But so I want to come to this, just my final question. I know the time is running down. At what point should we consider the science and have a measure of faith in the science? At what point should we do that when it comes to medical intervention? How much faith should we have in science? Or if we don't understand it, should we neglect it and just go by the holistic approach?
Now, I'm on I appreciate that question, and that was a nice either or. And I think what a lot of people do when they don't understand something, they tend to poo-poo it. They push it aside. I think we should work to help people better understand the science. I've used the language of evidence-based many times this afternoon. We got to keep working towards that. And again, science provide those descriptors that we talk about. They kind of tell us what is, and they give us numbers that we have a 70% chance here. Medicine is not, it's a science. Here it is. You can appreciate this, but it's not an exact science. If you catch what I'm saying, it's science, but it's not exact. So I think we can trust the science, Pastor Dr. Henry. I think we can trust, the medical science until we learn better, actually, until it goes awry. I think we can put our confidence there. And I don't think that actually weakens our faith. They used to say, I remember I was a student at Oakwood, and this is also how we grew up in the church. All truth belongs to God. including scientific truth, including medical truth. And we believe God is the one who opens it up for us to better understand these things that we can save lives. You gave the story in Australia, and I appreciate that. That is a touching story. That's another one of the reasons I went into this realm of study, in this realm of discourse, because people sometimes, and I'm going to use very strong language, foolishly, just out of hand, reject the science, reject what the physicians are telling them. And I want to be very, 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 very clear. Our health message doesn't require people to reject the science.
That's right. That's right.
I want to be clear about that. See, some people think that's what it is. That's why we got to go back and say, what is the core? What are we actually teaching people? And we're not teaching people that. We're teaching people to be responsible and to do the right thing and to promote their health and to promote their well-being and promote the health, well-being of their children, their families, more generally, and the communities in which we're called to serve.
I like what J.A. O'Rourke said in the text here. He said, faith is not in the creation, but in the creator.
Come on now.
He says, I trust God in the science as much as I trust him in the holistic direction.
Yes.
That says
Rook. I know that young man. Brilliant comment. No, it's a brilliant comment. Here it is. We can say it's not an either or. It's just not an either or. It's a both. It's a both. And until they conflict, until it's just straight conflict, Yeah.
So when we try to parallel faith in science as if it's against faith in God, we are really doing it a disjustice. We should have faith in God. Science can be the way God is directing us in how we deal with the situation.
Absolutely.
Sound like somebody preaching now. Sound like somebody preaching now. I think that's spot on. Not only do we do a disservice to the science, we do a disservice to God. And because one of the greatest and profound things, one of the great gifts that God has given the church in Ellen White is the health message. In many ways, the health message was a recovery. See, we always talk about the Sabbath being a recovery, but the health message is a recovery of a part of the
preacher.
We missed that point. And when we stop and just say, no, we can't go, we forget natural revelation. There's special revelation in the word of God, but there's also natural revelation. God is still doing amazing things in the world today. And we have to embrace that and accept that God is still doing amazing things in the world today. And if we would just open our eyes,
come on now,
sometimes, and just slow down. See, I'm real big about slowing down, thinking carefully and thinking critically, and ask the Lord, what are you doing in the world today? That's what the church understood in the health message. The church believed that God had given them the message. Why did God give them the message? Because poor health was going on. Go back and read the story of our health message.
Mercy.
Go back and take a look at the story of our health message and make sense of what was going on in the 19th century. That God said, let me help these folk out a little bit. Let me give the world a gift. See, here's the thing. We have took the health message and made it our own and made it a test of fellowship. And are you vegetarian? Do you eat these things? And growing up, people looking in folk cabinet. What kind of mess is that? God gave the world, gave us the health message to give to the world to improve the health of people all over the planet. That's what the health message is all about, and not a test of fellowship.
That's right.
But we miss it.
Yeah.
We miss it in our arrogance. I said, let me.
But the funny thing is that as much quoting of Ellen White that we do, that's one of her quotes, is that this should not be a test of fellowship. And we just...
And that's what we've done with. So then go back to the question of what our healthcare institutions are doing. We have over 5,000 healthcare institutions on the planet. Go back to what they're doing and ask the question, are they extending the healing ministry of Jesus?
Yeah,
Are
now
they bringing
that's much more debatable to me than the other part. So,
oh yeah, I'm
yeah,
looking forward to
yeah,
it. Oh,
yeah,
I'm looking forward to the discussion because it's real, and we have to have this. We have to have this.
Gotta have it. Gotta have it.
Yeah.
Look, folk, our time is gone, man, and we got to dig into this, man. Dr. Lampkin, this has been special, man. This has been awesome having you with us today. This has just been a blessing. I don't know if you can tell how our guest and our host, the co-host here, we are gushing over having you with us today. It has just been a pleasure. It's been an honor.
Oh my gosh, it's been good for me as well. I thank you all for the invitation, and I'm just so inspired by the ministry you have here and the work that you are doing. This is very important work. You know, this is what Sabbath school should be about, and this is what afternoon programs really should be about. We should be engaging these kinds of really hard questions right here, and we got the folk to do it. We got the folk to do it.
Absolutely.
So thank you for having me, and thank you all for your ministry here.
And thank you for being one of them folk.
No, we appreciate you.
Listen,
theological implications, man, regarding medical intervention. Before you say that, Raj, I just want to mention. Before you close,
I want to play. Can I play? Can I jump in here? Can I?
I just want to shout out. I just want to shout out Cindy Paul. She wrote something here that makes a whole.
Yes, that's it.
We confine the health message to what goes on our plates.
Come on now.
It's more than that. It's more than that. It's more than what we eat, what we take in, and maybe that myopic look is what's causing the issues today. I think another Lorraine Blake talked about the fact that we have not been pushing health ministry before the pandemic. It's only since the pandemic, all of a sudden, the health question has become such a major push.
It's true.
Mary should have been something that pastors should have been pushing before.
It's true. It got lost.
I was going to mention another quote passed away by Cindy Paul, which I think is a very good quote. And it says, is PRT going to have medical professionals who are against the vaccine? I thought you were going there. That's why I was giving a hand clap.
Okay. But we need to do that too.
Hey, listen, I'm taking my hand clap back, Pastor Ray, because this is so. We want to present both sides.
Absolutely.
Right? We want to see what the medical professionals who are against the vaccine.
Have you read the chat? Have you read the chat? The chat tells us we have medical professionals in the chat who are against the vaccine. And I understand that, and I appreciate them. If they want to come on, they need to send us a note. We would love to have them come on.
I read one comment that said that, and I we'd have to fact check it, of course. But one of the commenters, and I think it was Chris, said that the largest anti-vax demographic are PhDs. Somebody's got to Google that for us, and we certainly want to fact check. But that certainly, there's Chris. But that would be intriguing if that is indeed, so you'd want to find out, well, what's the deal? He's got a gang of them. Okay, just let me know. All right, we'll hook up, Chris.
Keep me posted when that discussion's happening. That is very curious to me, actually.
Yeah. Of course, these days it's dangerous to have those. Facebook and YouTube will shut you down if you know.
Dr. Lampkin, one of our viewers,
as well as the medical society,
wanted to read.
As well as the medical society. See, that's what I say. Let's see who's talking about those things, and let's see what they're saying. I'm looking forward to the discussion.
Yeah.
Dr. Lampkin, one of our viewers wanted to read your dissertation. Is there a place they can reach out to read that dissertation at this point?
Listen,
y'all can't afford it.
Dr. Henry has my information. We can share it with everyone. They can reach out to me. It's Critical Study. If you type in Critical Study of the Seventh-day Adventist Health Teaching Tradition, it'll actually kind of pop up online, and all dissertations are published through the University of Michigan, so it can be found. But if they reach out to me, I get them access to it.
Okay, we'll put it in our show notes, because we normally have show notes in all of our shows, so we'll make sure we get that in the show notes. You hear that, TJ? Make sure we get that in the show notes. All right, good deal. Kay Williams says, please have a segment on mental health.
Time well spent.
Absolutely. Good deal. All right, fam. What's going on? Rod, you taking us out today?
Well, listen, we just love this this series. It's going to be hot. Our next
Yeah.
week's season. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dr. Henry.
No. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. No,
Our
because I know.
next
Yeah,
week's
talk about
topic.
next
Our
week.
next week's topic. It's going to be on fire. We are going to be dealing with theological implications in social issues, dealing with the topic LGBTQI plus.
Wait, hold on.
Did we
preacher.
miss
Wait,
an alphabet in there?
Wait, hold on. Critical race theory next week.
Is critical race next week?
Yes.
I thought it was the week after. I could be wrong.
And we have two heavy hitters that are coming on next
All
week.
right.
We already
All right.
got them. We got
So-
them.
Oh.
Do we announce the guests now? You want us to announce
So
the people now?
we're gonna have to push the LGBTQ
plus
topic one
Y'all
more.
pray for the PRT. Y'all put some good prayers in there. Hey, but they're both hot topics, and both we're gonna spend some good time with, and we're excited about both of those topics. So line them up, block off this time. You want to be right here.
Yeah.
Next 2 weeks are going to be on point. Critical race theory, Black
Yes.
Lives Matters, all those issues are going to be dealt with next week. The week after, LGBTQI plus, and then we have, I think, one more after that. So you don't want to miss PRT for the next couple of weeks. We're excited about what God is doing through the show. We thank to all of our viewers for being here today. Please make sure you share this show with your network and your circle of friends. And we look forward to seeing you next week, where we hope and pray that you have joined the Pastors Roundtable, where we aim to keep ministry relevant,
Resourced.
And real. God bless.
Uh-oh. Here we go. That's not what you're supposed to see. This is.